So imagine you're playing the lead in this really gritty, grounded detective movie, right?
Like trench coat, smoky room, the whole classic noir aesthetic.
Exactly. You're dusting for prints, you're interrogating these nervous witnesses in some back room. You are completely dialed into this mystery. And then, right in the middle of a tense interrogation scene, the director yells, "Cut," hands you a glowing broadsword, and points to a green screen.
And says, like, script change.
Yeah. He says, okay, new script. Now you have to go fight a 12-foot tall monster made of literal fire to fulfill some ancient cosmic prophecy.
Talk about a jarring pivot.
hmm
I mean, the fundamental rules of the universe you've been operating in just completely upended themselves without any warning at all.
And as the actor, you just have to roll with it. So, welcome to today's deep dive. It is Monday, May 18th, 2026, and we are unpacking a piece of history that is essentially that exact scenario, but, playing out across the tabletop role-playing game industry.
Right, and it's such a fascinating moment in time.
It really is. We've got this massive stack of historical analyses, archival design documents, and gameplay notes on the table today. And it's all centered around what might seem like a totally obscure artifact. It's this 1983 Advanced Dungeons and Dragons module.
Just a little 32-page booklet,
Yeah, 32 pages. It's called I-4, Oasis of the White Palm.
which I know might sound incredibly niche to some people, but we're looking at this specific adventure because it's a perfect time capsule.
Oh, absolutely.
This single kind of chaotic little booklet sits exactly on the fault line of a massive paradigm shift in game design.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's set the stage for you because the sheer ambition of this thing is staggering. You open this booklet and you find deep political intrigue.
And gravity-defying physics track.
Right. Plus, like a cartoonish halfling bar just inexplicably sitting in the middle of a blazing desert. Oh, and some of the most baffling editing decisions in publishing history.
Which we will definitely get into.
Oh, we have to. But it represents this messy, beautiful transition. The industry was trying to move away from the old era of tactical dungeon crawl.
Where you just, kick down a door, kill a goblin, steal a chest.
Exactly. They were fumbling their way toward this new era of epic, cinematic, narrative-driven storytelling.
It really is the bridge between two entirely different philosophies of how we play pretend. And, well, like a lot of bridges built in a frantic hurry, it has a few missing planks.
A few is an understatement, so let's drop you, the listener, directly into the story here. The narrative actually picks up right after the previous adventure in the series, a module called Pharaoh.
Right, it assumes you've successfully completed that previous adventure.
But in doing so, you accidentally released a creature named Calatharius.
And Calatharius is not just some localized threat. He is an Ifriti.
A really big one.
Yeah, specifically a vizier of the Fire Sultan. We're talking about a creature that's nearly 12 feet tall,
Oh, wow.
weighing roughly 2,000 pounds. And his body is composed of solid basalt, bronze, and solidified fire.
Wait, solid fire?
Literally solid fire. He is a tyrannical engine of destruction native to the elemental plane of fire.
And he is furious about being locked up for 1,000 years. So he is systematically annihilating the desert environment.
It's burning settlements to glass.
Yeah, destroying magical items and hunting down anyone who might know how to re-imprison him. So you, the players, you stagger out of your previous adventure into this landscape that is just scarred by his wrath.
You're battered, you're exhausted.
They're probably out of supplies. And a dying survivor points you to the only safe haven left in the entire region, the Oasis of the White Palm.
And the geography of this sanctuary is meticulous. It's a 1-mile-wide circular oasis.
Okay.
On the outer edges, it's just arid, dying scrub brush. But the center is this dense, verdant growth surrounding a really large watering pool.
Right.
And then, 400 feet north of that pool is the namesake of the settlement, the White Palm.
Which is just a biological marvel, right? This tree is entirely bleached white, and it produces these dark brown dates that have this wild magical property.
Right. If you plant one of these dates near water, it grows into a full-size, mature palm tree in a single week.
That's incredible. That's how the oasis stays perpetually shaded. But wait, I was looking at the survival mechanics the game master is supposed to enforce here. If I'm a player arriving at this oasis, how am I even supposed to survive?
Well, you're not meant to have an easy time.
Because the water in that central pool is heavily guarded and the prices they charge are just insane.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The designers are deliberately forcing resource scarcity to set a tone of utter desperation. If you want a small vial of this slightly brownish, stagnant water, The local authorities charge 1 gold piece.
Let's put that in perspective for a second. In the standard economy of this game's era, a commoner might earn like a few copper pieces or maybe a silver piece for a full day's labor.
Right.
A gold piece is a massive sum of money. Paying that for a tiny vial of bad water is sheer extortion.
It's an extortionate rate for baseline survival. You can get a slight bulk discount. A large jug is 2 gold pieces.
Right.
But if you have a pack animal, watering a single camel costs 4 gold pieces. It highlights the immense logistical cost of just existing in this hostile environment.
The psychological pressure must be immense for the players. You aren't just swinging a sword at a monster, you're fighting a brutal local microeconomy just to stay hydrated.
Exactly.
But of course, you don't just get to drink your outrageously expensive water and take a nap. No, you arrive at this oasis at the exact moment that the local sheik's future daughter-in-law, Princess Shadala, vanishes without a trace.
Talk about bad timing.
Right. And just like that, the survival game turns into an immediate, highly volatile political powder keg.
Because the Oasis is far from a united community. It operates as this sandbox of paranoia. You have a brilliant 3-way shadow war happening right under the sheik's nose.
It is so good. It plays out like a Tangled Mob movie or a Coen Brothers comedy of errors where everybody thinks they're the smartest person in the room. Let's break down the factions for a minute.
Sure. First, you had the Thune cultists.
Right. Most of the people like the Oasis worship a benevolent god, but there's this subversive splinter group secretly worshiping the evil god Set. They're led by a very ambitious priest named Korga.
And when Calatharius, the giant fire monster, shows up at the Oasis, Korga is understandably terrified. So he feigns absolute subjugation to the Ifriti.
He's like, whatever you want, boss.
Exactly. And the fire monster tells Korga, I am looking for a specific desert woman who has a magical white design on the palm of her hand.
And Korga instantly realizes he's describing the sheik's future bride, Princess Shadala.
But Korga's greed completely overrides his fear. Instead of handing her over, he lies to the Ifriti, claims he has no idea who that is, and plots to kidnap her himself.
Wow. Bold move.
His plan is to use her as leverage to make the Ifriti wipe out the sheik's bloodline, which would leave Korga in control of the entire Oasis.
But Korga and his cultists aren't exactly black ops specialists, so they hire mercenaries to do the actual kidnapping. They bring in a slaver ring. And this is my absolute favorite piece of bizarre trivia in this entire deep dive.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
The slavers operating in this blazing, sun-drenched desert oasis are drow, dark elves.
It's completely ecologically absurd. Drow are a subterranean species. They live deep underground.
Yay.
In the rules of the game, they famously suffer severe mechanical combat penalties when exposed to bright sunlight. They essentially go blind.
The idea of them running a covert kidnapping operation in a desert at high noon is entirely illogical for their biology. They would need like SPF 5000 just to walk to the tavern.
Yeah, it makes zero sense. But, okay, the cultists hire the heavily sunburned slavers.
Right.
But here is the plot twist. Before the slavers can even execute the kidnapping, the giant fire monster gets impatient.
He's tired of waiting.
Yeah, he bypasses all of them, finds the princess on his own, and just kidnaps her himself, flying off to a distant crypt. And he doesn't tell anyone he did this.
This is where the brilliant dramatic irony kicks in. Because the monster goes rogue, nobody knows who actually has the princess.
Right.
And everyone starts pointing fingers. The cultists think the slavers double-crossed them and are holding the bride for a higher ransom.
Yep.
The slavers think the cultists cut them out of the deal to save money and grabbed her themselves. And the poor sheik is caught in the middle, terrified of internal treason, completely afraid to send his guards out to look for her in case he gets assassinated while they're gone.
It's a brilliant setup. If we step back and look at what this means for the players, it forces a drastic shift in playstyle. You can't just draw your sword and hack your way through a political misunderstanding.
You'd end up fighting the whole town.
Exactly. You have to rely on interrogation, diplomacy, analyzing conflicting testimonies, and deduction. You have to untangle the knot to figure out that the true culprit is the ancient Ifriti.
Okay, so you do the detective work, you untangle the lies, and you figure out the fire monster took her. But that brings up a massive problem. That you said earlier he's a 12-foot-tall, 2,000-pound monster made of fire.
Yeah.
The players in this adventure are supposed to be between levels 6 and 8. Statistically, if they just charge in with their swords, they're going to get absolutely crushed, right? Do they have to find some sort of ice weapon to even the odds?
Well, that's the trick. They aren't supposed to fight him at all. It is a statistically insurmountable encounter.
Okay.
And that is the radical shift in game design we were talking about earlier. Historically, the boss at the end of the dungeon is there for you to kill. But here, the designers are explicitly shifting the goalposts. Your objective isn't combat, it's fulfilling an ancient prophecy.
Ah, the prophecy of Martek.
Yes. 1,000 years ago, an ancient wizard named Martek foresaw that Calitharius would eventually escape. So he engineered a magical failsafe. He convinced a rival elemental being, a genie vizier named Erroldoth, to enter temporal stasis so he could be unleashed as a countermeasure.
It's essentially a giant monster in a glass case that says break in case of Afridi.
Precisely. And the mechanism to shatter that glass case is split into two physical components.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's a magical mark amulet, a literal white palm, that manifests on the hand of the woman destined to marry the sheik of the Oasis. That's Shadala.
Right.
Second, there's a magical amulet held by the sheik's bloodline. The puzzle requires you to visually match the physical design on the bride's palm with the geometric patterns etched into the amulet.
So they fit together.
Exactly. When aligned correctly, they reveal the magical command words that shatter the stasis. So your mission is to survive long enough to solve this alignment puzzle and summon the genie to fight the Afridi for you.
I love that concept. Shifting from, we have to kill the boss to we have to solve a puzzle to summon our own boss is such a cinematic idea.
It really is.
But I was looking at the actual physical materials that came in the box in 1983, and the execution of this puzzle was a disaster.
Notoriously bad.
The game designers provided a physical paper handout for the players to hold, representing the sheik's amulet. The idea was you'd put the amulet handout over a drawing of the bride's palm once you rescued her. But they printed the amulet handout on completely transparent paper.
It is an incredibly glaring design flaw. Astute players sitting around a table in 1983 would just pick up the transparent handout, look at the negative space and the geometric patterns, and easily guess the hidden command words without ever needing to see the bride's palm.
You don't even need to rescue her. You could just sit in the tavern, drink your expensive water, look at the paper, guess the password, and summon the giant genie from the comfort of a bar stool.
Which completely breaks the narrative.
As the person running the game, you essentially have to artificially railroad your friends. You have to pretend they can't see the blindingly obvious answer in front of their faces, just to force them to go into the dungeon and rescue the princess.
It requires a very heavy degree of suspension of disbelief, yes. But if the person running the game can manage to push the players past that broken puzzle and get them into the dungeons, they are rewarded.
Because the moment you step underground, the module becomes an absolute masterclass in spatial design.
The underground cartography here is phenomenal. You got two main complexes that feel completely different from each other.
Right. First, you have the Temple of Set, which is the cultists' headquarters hidden under a stone monolith near the Oasis.
And what's notable about the Temple of Set is how grounded its threats are. It's designed like a pulp fantasy Egyptian tomb. It doesn't rely heavily on magical wards. It uses kinetic physical traps.
Yeah, the module actually includes detailed architectural diagrams, so the person running the game understands the exact physics of the threat.
Right. It forces players to interact with the environment logically, using 10-foot poles to test the floorboards, calculating counterweights, relying on careful observation.
It's very tactile. But then you transition to the second dungeon, the Crypt of Badr al-Massak, where the Afridi is actually holding the princess. And this abandons all that grounded physics and just hits you with terrifying supernatural horror.
The tonal shift is intense.
We're talking mummies and these creatures called wights that have an ability called level draining,
Which is perhaps the most punishing mechanic in the history of the game.
For those who haven't played, imagine spending 6 months of your actual real life coming over to your friend's basement every weekend, slowly earning experience points to level up your character.
A huge time investment.
Right. And then a creature touches you and you permanently lose that level.
Yeah.
Months of real-world time investment just erased in a single dice roll.
It is incredibly brutal. But deep within that punishing crypt is what might be the module's most brilliant innovation. It's a trap known as the Pits of Everfall.
Oh, I love this one.
This is a localized spatial anomaly. Imagine walking down a stone hallway that abruptly terminates into a 30-foot diameter vertical shaft, extending endlessly above and below you.
It's like somebody playing the video game Portal, but 30 years before it came out.
That's a perfect comparison. It creates an infinitely repeating three-dimensional gravity loop.
Yeah.
If you fall in, you drop through the floor and immediately fall out of the ceiling.
You just plummet endlessly at terminal velocity.
You're waving at your own party members as you cycle past them in the loop, getting battered by falling debris and howling winds.
How do you even get out of that?
To escape, the players have to navigate a complex spatial geometry, solving a 3D puzzle while trying not to be sucked into a gravity well. It's testing their geographical awareness in a way most games at the time never even attempted.
It is such a high-concept, brilliant trap, which really begs the question, how did a single 32-page booklet end up with such an unbelievable mix of ideas? You have this grounded, nitty-gritty political mystery with the factions, you have transparent, broken puzzles, and then you have this sweeping, gravity-defying, mythic dungeon.
The answer to that tonal whiplash lies in a behind-the-scenes clash of creators.
Yeah, let's get into the drama.
To understand why this module feels like two different games stitched together, we have to look at the chaotic publishing floor of TSR in the early 1980s. This series originated with Tracy and Laura Hickman.
Okay.
Back in 1977, they were newlyweds and struggling college students. They couldn't even afford to buy the original Dungeon Master's Guide rulebook.
I love that detail. So to generate the funds just to buy the rulebooks, they formed their own company, Daystar West Media, and started writing and self-publishing their own adventures.
And their work was so phenomenally good that TSR, the massive company that owned the game, bought their first adventure, Pharaoh, and offered Tracy Hickman a staff position.
Incredible.
But then TSR management mandated that Hickman expand Pharaoh into a full trilogy. But for this middle chapter, Oasis of the White Palm, they were under a massive time crunch.
So they didn't have him write it from scratch?
No, they forced Hickman to adapt an existing unpublished manuscript by a relatively unknown designer named Philip Meyers.
So you have Philip Meyers, who only ever had a couple of professional credits, writing this highly localized, emergent sandbox mystery. The slavers, the cultists, the sheik, the extortionate water economy historians believe that was all Meyers' original work.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus.
And then Hickman is told to take that grounded mystery and violently stitch it into his massive, linear, mythic prophecy about the wizard Martek, the star gems, and these elemental titans.
You end up with two completely different design philosophies warring for page space. The transition between the open-ended political investigation and the heavily railroaded cinematic epic is incredibly jarring.
And nothing symbolizes that tonal clash better than Happy Hogan's.
Oh, Happy Hogan's.
You're in the middle of this gritty, pseudo-Bedouin apocalypse. Fire monsters are burning the desert. People are dying of thirst. The economy is collapsing. And right in the middle of the oasis is a cartoonish, Western-style dome tavern owned by a retired halfling adventurer.
It's just bizarre.
It is a chaotic goulash of 1980s fantasy tropes that no one bothered to smooth out.
The rushed editorial synthesis of these two visions resulted in a physical layout that is notoriously disastrous. Among archivists and longtime players, it's considered one of the most difficult modules to actually run at a table.
The editing nightmare is legendary. Let's paint a picture of the physical disasters printed in this booklet. First off, the publishing team used an outdated formatting template that categorized every single character as a monster.
Right, which makes no sense for a town setting.
Exactly. So you have peaceful merchants, quest givers, innocent diplomats, all labeled in giant bold text as monsters, making it incredibly confusing for the person trying to figure out who is hostile and who isn't.
And it struggles profoundly with mechanical logic, too. In one diplomatic encounter, if the players negotiate well, they are rewarded with 3+1 heavy iron maces.
Which, sounds cool until you break down the math. A +1 mace is a very minor magical weapon. Mechanically, for characters at levels 6 through 8, these weapons are completely obsolete. They already have much better gear.
Yeah, they don't need them.
And logically, the game has a physics engine called encumbrance, which tracks how much weight you can carry before you collapse. Carrying 3 massive, heavy iron maces through a blazing desert is just a practical impossibility.
It's a reward that actively punishes the players with math homework.
Totally.
Furthermore, if you look at the character stat block for Hassan Arslan, the Sheik's son, it lists his charisma score as a 2.
A 2.
Now, in this edition of the game, human stats were generated by rolling 3 6-sided dice and adding them together. The absolute lowest score mathematically possible is a 3.
They literally printed an impossible number. They broke the laws of their own dice.
Archivists assume it was a typo for a 12, but nobody caught it.
But the ultimate sin of publishing, the absolute worst error, the descriptive text on the physical back cover of the booklet explicitly spoils the ending of the adventure for the buyer.
It's unbelievable.
You flip it over in the store to see what it's about, and it just flat out tells you the twist ending.
Yet despite all of this, the transparent puzzle, the useless heavy maces, the impossible math, the daylight-dwelling dark elves, the spoilers, the module is widely praised for playing exceptionally well at the table.
It's the definition of a diamond in the rough.
It really is.
Yeah.
And its legacy proved to be monumental.
Yes. Let's fast forward a few years to 1987. TSR decides to compile the entire trilogy into a 128-page supermodule called Desert of Desolation. They finally fixed the layout issues, they generated a comprehensive world map, and they smoothed over the connective tissue between the chapters.
But the real historical payoff of that 1987 compilation isn't the fixed editing, it's the logo stamped on its cover. This supermodule was the very first product to bear the official logo of the Forgotten Realms.
Which is the most famous campaign setting in tabletop role-playing history. The world that spawned countless novels, video games, a blockbuster movie. How did a duct-taped desert adventure become the foundational bedrock of the Forgotten Realms?
It was pure corporate synergy. TSR was preparing to launch the Forgotten Realms boxed set. The setting's creator, Ed Greenwood, had voluminous amounts of lore, but he didn't have many ready-to-publish adventures.
Ah, okay.
So TSR developer Jeff Grubb was tasked with retrofitting existing popular modules into Greenwood's newly codified world of Faerun.
So Grubb took the nameless Dust Desert from the 1983 module and officially dropped it into the distant southeast of the Forgotten Realms, naming it the Roarin Desert.
Yes.
He tied the ancient wizard Martek to the legacy of the Umaskari artificers. The fire monster Calatharius became known as the Garmsil, this gigantic whirlwind that strips flesh from bone.
And what is highly ironic about this is that Ed Greenwood had virtually no part in this adaptation. He vehemently disliked adding pyramids and real-world historical ties to his fantasy world.
He wasn't a fan of the pseudo-Egyptian stuff.
Not at all. Yet this retrofitted narrative became a massive success, permanently cementing the Oasis of the White Palm into the lore of a world played by millions today.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? The big takeaway here is really about the messy beauty of transitional art. Oasis of the White Palm is a chaotic mess of conflicting ideas, terrible editing, and brilliant mechanics.
The awkward adolescence of game design.
Exactly. But it ultimately pushed an entire industry out of the disconnected, plotless funhouse dungeons of the 1970s and into a new era of cohesive, mythic storytelling. It proved that players wanted a story, not just a tactical combat simulator.
It challenged assumptions about what a game could be, even as it stumbled over its own rules.
And speaking of stumbling over rules, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over on your own. It's a paradox embedded right in the source material. We talked about how the module dedicates pages and pages of complex rules to tracking daily water rationing, managing encumbrance, and forcing the players through a grueling 5-day desert hex crawl.
And for those unfamiliar, a hex crawl is a style of play where you track your movement piece by piece across a hexagonal map, micromanaging every drop of water and every inch of travel.
It's an exhausting survival simulation.
Yes. And if you check the map scale, taking 5 days to cross this desert means they were walking at an absurdly slow pace of 3 to 4 miles a day.
Right. But here is the mind-bending paradox. This adventure is specifically designed for characters between levels 6 and 8. In the rules of this game, by level 6, any cleric character has access to 3rd-level magic.
Yeah, okay.
Which means they can cast a simple spell called Create Water multiple times a day. With a wave of their hands, they can magically generate gallons of perfectly clean drinking water out of thin air. They can entirely bypass the core environmental threat of the entire setting without breaking a sweat.
Which completely neutralizes the extortionate water economy we discussed earlier.
Completely. So you have to ask yourself, did the designers fundamentally misunderstand the implications of their own magic system?
Or were they just blindly clinging to vestigial survival mechanics meant for lower-level characters?
Right. Unable to fully let go of the past even as they built the future.
It raises a fascinating question about how simulation mechanics and high fantasy narrative often fight each other in game design.
It really does. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the mechanics of the stories you love, because sometimes you're the gritty noir detective dusting for prints, and sometimes the universe just hands you a glowing magic sword and points you toward a 12-foot monster. Have a great day.